In this dream, I was afforded an interesting objective viewpoint indeed, from the perspective of what I can only describe as the blob. If you have ever seen Steve McQueen's movie, The Blob, you'll know the nature of this particular beastie, as it was very similar to this creature I found myself as. It had a voracious appetite, if that's what it was. It was rather difficult to exactly determine the nature of its activities, but every creature, being or individual it came into contact with, it would engulf, absorb, assimilate, and seemingly incorporate into itself. It was a large mass, a heaving black creature with no defining shape, and was amidst bipedal humanoid individuals which were fleeing this creature, so evidently the absorption was only beneficial to this blob. From my blobby viewpoint, I didn't have much by way of created personality, emotion, or mental consideration. I was rather indifferent as I went about my gobbling up activities. So this creature was much like an animal then, in a state of awareness as animals are, just doing what it does, being and seeing with nothing added, no emotion or mental ideas attached to the experiences it was having. Then, after a time of viewing from this creature's perspective, I was afforded another view. A view again from this individual's perspective, but from the lifetime it had had prior to its life as a blob. In this lifetime, the individual was in a strange place in life, a sort of realm or dimension, where it was constantly hunted, attacked, killed endlessly, and somehow surviving all this, rinsing and repeating, and subjected to this torment again. There seemed no rest for this being. It was constantly under siege. I didn't get much by way of a look at its attackers, or the vehicle and view I had. I and it were rather busy surviving. But unlike the future lifetime, where it would become a blob, it was adding to its experience. It was finding everything understandably not to its liking, getting rather irate at its mistreatment, and harbouring charged emotional ideas and projections of rage and revenge. Then the dream would end. An interesting view, my awareness affording the knowledge that the individual I was viewing from in both lifetimes was the same, the current one as the blob, and then shifting to its previous lifetime. In each form, I took on its personal self, or lack of it, as it was an animal of a kind in both lifetimes, but maintaining an objective view also, that I wasn't immersed fully in the individual's experience. From here, I could make my determinations of what was transpiring and glean impressions. The blob individual was in a state of awareness, yes, and was just being what it was, indifferent to its experience. but the individual's previous lifetime had been quite the opposite, and despite being an animal of a kind also, it was adding far more emotional ideas to its experience, and along the lines of fear, aggression, etc. We can see then how individuals can be moved along in their body forms, for without creating ideas, emotion, thought, and utilizing the body vehicle as a generator of cause and effect, experiences which would move an individual along and project into its next lifetimes would be lacking. We have learned how the ease moves individuals' body forms along until free will is established, and through that an individual takes control of the generating of experience through choices and idea creation. It seems that the ears would only perhaps need to move an individual along if there was nothing that said individual was generating in regards to cause and effect experience, or an individual wouldn't move at all if as an animal it was in its state of only awareness and adding nothing on top. It would be in the now of the is, and outside of cause and effect. We have learned how individuals who come fresh from the is are already given a little karma, just to kickstart the experiential process and unfolding of their lives. Seems then that what moves animal forms along is adversity, as this generates astral emotional responses, and cause and effect will follow, and according to the nature of the experience and the emotion added by the animal, dictates what it will project as a future lifetime. In this experience we see the progression, an animal living a lifetime of fear and rage as a result of its experience, and this want to not be in such a position, not so much an articulation in its mind as an emotional drive, resulting in it being something that was quite the opposite in the next lifetime, a role reversal almost. And it would not surprise me that those it was now absorbing had been those individuals hunting and causing it grief in its prior lifetime, as by their actions they had created a cause and effect that would culminate in them being the victims of the individual they had attacked last lifetime around. Maybe these individuals, locked into each other's cause and effect experience, would cycle on this way forever, back and forth, until such time as awareness affords them a means to move into a position of new nowness beyond cause and effect karma. But anyway, I thought it was interesting how even animals in their awareness state will be projecting future lifetimes too, based on their reactions and rudimentary emotional considerations to the experiences that they have, all spiraling from the initial karma given to them as they first stepped into creation as an amoeba or whatever. Every individual's lifetimes and positions will be unique, and it can be seen here how in one lifetime One individual can be the hunted and in the very next lifetime be the aggressor, explaining also how the idea of evolution actually is. For if individual considerations bring forth different body forms, then it follows that collectively a species' body form can adapt and change in accordance with a want or desire based on experience that stimulates such wants. A harmless snake species collectively seeding a need to have more protection, and so cause and effect, the reflective return of all that is wanted and sought, culminates in the snake species adopting the coloration of a more venomous variety to ward off attackers. The harmless king snake adopting the colour striations of the venomous coral snake, for example. Or perhaps we have an example of how, if an individual churns out very intense emotional ideas or creates in a way that is adverse to others, the individual can regress to an animal form in the next lifetime. We have learned how the world controllers, continuing with their restricting ways, can end up becoming distorted in future body forms, and even projecting further into forms of alligators and swamp beasts if they persist. So maybe this individual, although the recipient of adversity, created charged emotional ideas of such a nature as to find itself projecting into more of an animal form in the future, the blob, as in its hunted lifetime it may well have been an animal of a kind, but one perhaps just creeping into the sort of position where free will is afforded and utilized poorly, and so regressing back into an animal form again the next time around. I can imagine individuals fluctuating a bit between awareness animal and free will afforded body types in their lifetimes, until they perhaps get a better handle on their free will and move forward rather than back. And of course, for the individual on the process of awareness, it's all about experience and the comparisons, recognizing the is by comparing it to what it is not, which is every experience that we have in the psych realms. And what affords greater experience is a greater array of viewpoints from a greater plethora of individuals and body forms. And so the real guides afford us experiences of this nature, allowing that we view from the perspective of other beings, so we can get even more comparisons to determine what the is not, that we can recognize it better. And this experience not only gave me an objective view, but also to see cause and effect in action in regards to how individuals move from one body form to another as they create and project their future lifetimes,